The council chamber aboard the threshold of Ashen Stars was built for beings twice her height, its walls ribbed with black chitin that pulsed faintly with bioluminescent light. Alara stood at its center, small and unarmored, while 9 alien delegates loomed around her in a circle of silent contempt. "This is the representative Earth has sent us." The voice belonged to Kael'th, a Voronari trade broker whose 4 eyes narrowed in something between amusement and disgust. A soft-skinned child with no claws, no plating, no venom. "You people are a joke wrapped in flesh." Laughter rippled through the chamber, dry clicking from the insectoid thrall, a low rumble from the reptilian Sassaner. Alara didn't flinch. She had expected this. Every human envoy who'd come before her had faced the same reception, and most had left in disgrace, their trade proposals shredded, their dignity worse. "I'm not here to impress you," she said evenly. "I'm here to negotiate a supply corridor through Voronari space. Humanity has grain surpluses. You have a famine on 3 colony worlds. This isn't about claws." "It's always about claws," Kael'th sneered. "Strength is the only currency that matters out here, little human. Your species has been in the galactic community for 11 years. You have no war record worth mentioning. No conquered territories, no." The chamber doors hissed open. Every alien in the room froze. The being that entered wore no ceremonial regalia, no jeweled rank insignia. Only matte black armor scarred from 100 campaigns, its surface still faintly warm from the void outside. He was massive, nearly 9 feet of corded muscle and old, healed wounds, and the air itself seemed to still around him. This was Lucian, apex commander of the Threshold Fleet, a man whose name alone had ended 3 wars before the first shot was fired. Species across a dozen systems paid tribute simply to keep his ships from entering their orbit. He did not look at the delegates. He looked at Alara. And then, to the horror and disbelieving silence of every alien in the chamber, Apex Commander Lucian inclined his head, not a nod of courtesy, but a full, deliberate bow, the kind reserved for sovereigns. "Envoy Alara," he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the deck plating. "It has been 3 years." The silence that followed was absolute. Kael'th's 4 eyes darted between the two of them, his earlier bravado curdling into something closer to panic. "Commander Lucian," Alara replied, and for the first time since entering the chamber, the faintest smile touched her lips. "You're late. I was almost finished humiliating myself in front of your allies." "They will not laugh again," Lucian said, straightening. He turned, finally, to face the delegates, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. "Kael'th of Clan Voron, you called this woman fragile." Commander, I meant no offense to the fleet, only. You meant precisely what you said." Lucian's eyes, a burning amber that had no human equivalent, fixed on the trade broker without blinking. "Perhaps you are unaware of who stands before you. Allow me to correct that oversight." He began to walk the perimeter of the chamber, slow and unhurried, the way a predator circles something it has already decided is prey. 3 years ago, the Threshold Fleet was dying, he said. Not from battle. From the Ashvale Plague, a bioweapon released into our ranks by the Karsu Remnant, engineered to consume our biology from the inside. 800,000 soldiers infected. Our best xenobiologists gave us 6 months before total collapse of the fleet's combat capacity. Species older than yours, Kael'th, species with 1,000 years of medical archives, looked at the Ashvale sequence and told us it could not be cured. Only slowed. He stopped in front of the Sassaner delegate, whose confident sprawl had gone rigid. Humanity had been in the galactic community for 8 years at that point. No military reputation, no political weight. Your kind did not even bother sending Earth an invitation to the Ashvale Crisis Summit. Why would you consult a species that couldn't fight? A low, humorless sound that might have been a laugh. But Earth sent a response anyway. Uninvited. A research vessel, staffed by a skeleton medical team, requesting permission to study the plague. Alara said nothing. She had heard this story told many times, in many chambers, but she still felt her jaw tighten at the memory of it. I commanded the vessel that intercepted them, Lucian continued. I told them to turn back. I told them, in words very similar to yours, Kael'th, that a species of soft, clawless children had no business near a weapon that had broken empires. And the lead researcher on that vessel, 23 years old, holding a doctorate that should have taken her a decade longer to earn, stood on my bridge and told me that if I let her ship burn, 800,000 of my soldiers would die anyway, and I would have killed them out of pride. He turned back to Alara. Something in his hardened expression shifted, not softened, exactly, but the amber eyes lingered. I let her dock, he said, against the counsel of every officer I commanded. She spent 4 months aboard my flagship, in the heart of an active infection zone, without armor, without the biological defenses any of your species possess naturally. She rebuilt the Ashvale sequence from nothing. She isolated a cure using compounds no one else had thought to test, because human medicine had spent centuries fighting diseases that mutated faster than the body could adapt, plagues you have never had to face, because your species evolved on worlds that made you strong from birth. Humanity's weakness, he said, and his voice carried through the chamber like a verdict, was born from ours. You do not need cleverness when you have claws. Humans have needed cleverness for every day of their existence. Kael'tha's mandibles clicked uselessly, no retort forming. The cure was administered to my fleet in the 5th month, Lucian said. It worked. Every soldier who would have died is alive today, because of the woman you called fragile. My fleet does not forget its debts, Kael'th. I do not forget mine. He faced the assembled delegates fully now, and his presence filled the chamber the way a gathering storm fills a horizon. Alara does not require the Threshold fleet's protection to survive this negotiation, he said, but she has it regardless. Any trade agreement discussed in this chamber will be discussed with the understanding that the fleet regards her word as binding, her safety as absolute, and any insult offered to her as an insult offered to me personally. I trust that clarifies the terms under which this council will now proceed. No one spoke. The Threll had stopped clicking entirely. Even the air recyclers seemed to hush. Alara let the silence sit for a long moment before she broke it, her tone brisk and businesslike, as though the last 5 minutes had been an unremarkable formality. Now that we've established I'm not going to be laughed out of this room, she said, let's talk about grain. It took 40 minutes to finalize the corridor agreement, a fraction of the time such negotiations usually consumed. Kael'th signed the terms without a single objection, his earlier venom replaced by something that looked distinctly like fear whenever his eyes drifted toward the commander standing silently at Alara's shoulder. When the chamber finally emptied, Lucian remained. He watched Alara gather her data slate, her movements calm, unbothered, as if she hadn't just secured a trade route that would feed 2 dying colonies. You didn't need to do that, she said without looking up. I had them. I know, Lucian said. You have never needed saving, Alara. That has never been the point. She glanced up at him then, and something passed between them that had nothing to do with politics or plagues. Something quieter, built over 3 years of a debt that had long since become a friendship, and was, if either of them were honest, becoming something more. Then why? She asked. Because a species that measures worth in claws and venom will never understand what it looks like when someone chooses to save their enemies at the cost of their own safety, Lucian said. They needed to see it stated plainly. Humanity's strength was never in what you lacked. It was in what you did despite lacking it. Alara smiled, tucking the data slate under her arm as she walked toward the door. Careful, Commander, she said. Keep talking like that, and people will think the apex of the Threshold fleet has gone soft. Only for one human, Lucian rumbled, falling into step behind her. The galaxy may take its time learning what my fleet already knows. Behind them, the chamber lights dimmed, and word of what had happened there began its slow, unstoppable spread across 100 worlds. That humanity's fragility had always been a lie the galaxy told itself, and the apex commander of the Threshold fleet had just made that lie impossible to repeat.